Hey everybody, I'm Nico, and you guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Nico Action. That's NICOACTION.
And I'm Tori. You can find me on Twitter at Tori_Sheehan and on Instagram at SMTori. That's Tori with an I.
And we're here to continue our amazing investigation of Daredevil story by story in The Billy Club, which sometimes makes me feel like we're like in a really sexy John Grisham novel turned movie in like 1994.
Yes, I also enjoy the fact that in this issue, we get Daredevil talking to his Billy Club with, okay, Billy Club, we've got ourselves a job to do. And I'm like, well, that's our new intro. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had the pleasure of listening back to our episodes, and I kept being like, I'm sure we said the same things 100 times, and I'm sure there isn't like really strong threads. No, it's all there. And it's one of the things that makes me so proud of this project because we're tracing this narrative and we're finding it. And like your understanding of Karen and what it was like to be a girly feminist in the 1960s, like I feel like I understand this book so much better now because something that we talk about a lot is disability visibility. But what about the other people who are underrepresented in comics at this time?
Which is like basically everybody at this point. And also like to put an asterisk on that Karen stuff. This is also girly feminism as viewed through the men who are writing her and drawing her and all that stuff. So like, it's like basic low level like feminism of we have a girl in the workplace, so it's already feminist.
Oh man, that's some saddening numbers. But you know, we're here to fix it. Kind of. It's not exactly a time machine, but one of the things that's so exciting is I think more women need to be talking about Daredevil because he is just a character that we've seen culturally en masse as he's been introduced to the zeitgeist. We have seen huge numbers of women react to these Marvel Netflix shows, react to the Zdarsky run, react to the Wade run. And I feel like there is so much to be said about what wasn't said back in the day that I'm really excited to watch Karen more than anyone ever this time. How do you feel as like a modern woman looking back at what they put Karen through?
I think it's very, very easy to disregard Karen completely for a very long time. And I think it's really interesting because I know that a lot of people are 50-50 on Karen when it comes to like the Netflix Daredevil series. And I think that kind of reflects her shaky beginnings because she wasn't meant to be anything really much more than this, the one of the points of this love triangle, to be the damsel in distress, to be the pretty girl that we're all looking at. Like that's really all she's meant to do in the beginning. She's not going to grow into her own self and her own storylines for quite a while.
And it's so indicative of something I guess I'm coming to understand better through multiple projects, and I'm investigating a separate side universe called MC2 on another program that I'm doing along with my collaborative partner TK. And in that universe, which is what if Spider-Man and Co. aged in real time, and I have a Captain America shield that's new favorite thing is when my voice hits a certain pitch, it just goes off in the background of everything. So, you know, my Cap shield just made another guest appearance. I love it. And so in this universe where everybody ages in real time, there is a character named Daredevil, and Daredevil is Daredevil gets murdered by an evil clone of Spider-Man named Kane, who's real, who is working for the Kingpin. And when Kane feels so guilty for taking a person so good from the world as Daredevil that he turns to dark magic to try and resurrect Daredevil, it goes horribly awry, and the good clone of Peter Parker, Ben Reilly, had a son, and through this incantation going horribly awry, Zarathos, the dark demon of the Ghost Rider, like the darkness of the Ghost Rider, Zarathos, enters the boy. And in that moment, I'm going to lose my shit. Matt purifies his own spirit to save this child from being another child hurt when they lost a father figure. And Matt becomes a guardian angel force fighting against Zarathos. Like literally, he becomes like an angel and becomes Ghost Rider's demon's equivalent and holds him at bay and fires him out of this child. That was 1998. That's what the guys writing this in 1998 still thought about Daredevil.
I believe Matt Murdock is a complicated character. Not everyone agrees.
So in my coverage, I'm like, look, we talk a lot about how people believing in him makes him more powerful, but like, I don't know that he could transform into an angel of justice and judgment and fire out a millennium-old super god.
Is Matt Murdock a saint? Let's start from the top.
Right? And I bring that up because not a single lick of that is in here.
Yeah, no.
And so how could they have known what Karen was going to be when they had no idea what Daredevil was going to come to mean?
Yeah. The only person who sort of stays the same, I guess, is Foggy. I guess they do a little more humanizing of Foggy because he is very much 1960s dude.
Oh, yeah.
This. So like I wouldn't be shocked if he was a bird watcher. Like it's all of this nonsense. That's not bird watching. That's girl watching.
Okay, because I was like, okay, bird watching.
No. The bird watching that led to the sweater riots.
So like when I go to the boardwalk to check out the cake shop.
Yeah.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Man, and speaking of cakes, I just need to say for 10 seconds, if I wasn't gay before I read Daredevil, this boy's butt would have made me gay.
It's a good butt. And it's in black right now, so you don't even really get too much shape in it, but like...
It like sticks out for a skinny white boy. Like, they specifically...
There's a lot of squats.
Yes. He's got like shapely features.
He does.
And like
he looks particularly beefed up in the corner of the cover this time around.
So I'm so glad you said something about the cover because that means we should jump into the book proper. We are, of course, here to talk about the only ever, and this is one of my favorite things, 6th issue of Daredevil. Of course, we've already talked about an extra 2 issues in Amazing Spider-Man 16 and a sneeze of Amazing Spider-Man 18.
Oof, bless you.
Right? Bless us both. Maybe Matt will protect us from a demon. And it's okay. So issue 5 ends with that amazing Wally Wood splash. And then issue 6 starts with pretty much the exact same fucking image in a way that I find like semi-unempowering, I guess.
Yeah, I wasn't crazy about it. I love that we get the double D right now. I love that, you know, we have a lot of really fun lettering and simple colors, the pink sky, the blues and yellows. It's all very nice, but like, yeah, this is almost the exact same image. And it's hard for me to decide what is called lazy back then because like, on the one hand, I know that there was 2 months between the last issue and this one. And on the other hand, I imagine they had a lot fewer people in the bullpen back then. So like it all sort of, I guess, evens out to probably what we see, the workload and the amount of stress and recopying that we see today.
Yeah, okay, I'll go for it. I'll definitely agree because it's not like he photoshopped it.
He can't. He could have traced it, maybe. Maybe there was some tracing.
Yeah, and like it's not a swipe if it's your own work because that would put most of the top artists at Marvel and DC out of work. If they can't trace themselves, it's your personal property. Nobody says to Mariah Carey, that run sounds like that other run. Stop whistling through your face hole so much. They just say, keep singing, girl. And I think one of the things that like I think about a lot is I'm a performance artist in that I perform my art. I don't create art that I necessarily think about seeing over and over again analyzed. I write songs, but for me, I'm writing the song for someone else. For me, the song is about the individual performance. That is not the case with comics. every mistake these gentlemen made that has not been digitally corrected by the digital upgrade bullpen exists forever. And in so many ways, when I think about how, like, when a book comes out on Wednesday and there's a typo in it, I get an update Thursday morning at 8 a.m. It's just how my world works. There's an auto button on my Comixology. Download the updated version without telling me. Yeah, please do. I want it in HD if I can get it in HD. But like, these guys didn't have that benefit. So there is some choppiness to these stories that just is hard to miss.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that sort of that choppiness is only exacerbated by the fact that we only get this issue every so often, because it means that, like, unless they were literally like, all right, folks, there's 24 pages and there's 8 weeks in between, so every week you got to do 3 pages of Daredevil, I can guarantee you that did not happen. I can guarantee you it was, all right, you've got 24 pages in 14 days, let's go. So like, they're taking the time in between where they have to remind themselves what everything looks like. They have to remind themselves what these things look like. And I know that it's different from not drawing at all to drawing again, but drawing something in another style for another title has to be, and then to just like drop it and move to back to this does have to create a certain amount of like differences and confusion. And does Foggy's face look like that? Does Matt's face look like that? Unclear.
Yeah, I really agree with you. That's something we've been talking about a lot, that these artists also don't get credit on. If I got hired to write Spider-Man today, I could look at over 2,500 issues that contain his narrative voice, how he moves, how he thinks. If I were hired to write Daredevil, I would have 1,000 issues. But if you hired me to write Sights, the new character created by Jason Liu, he's a mutant in the pages of X-Men Unlimited, where he just always has anime eyes, full time, and they have stars around them, and he can always see the truth.
Aww.
And like, he's my new favorite character of all time, and he's like a queer bee little bartender. I love him so much. And he's like obsessed with mutant pop stars, so this character is exactly me. I have one issue and 8 panels to pull from. So like, how do these fucking guys drew that? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
That's talent, is what that is. Because like, that's the other thing, is that we're not saying it's bad.
Right.
We are not saying it's bad. What we're saying is that like the continuity and the effortlessness of going from one issue to the next is slightly compromised,
for sure,
because of various things that we've been talking about.
I agree a lot, and I think it's one of the things where Daredevil benefits from the advancement of art in, like, I love when, and I'm going to get some shit for this, but I love when he's in the bleed and in the gutter. Like, I love when his leg is out of the panel box, and I love when he's holding onto the top of the panel, and I love when the billy clubs fly through one panel into the other panel, hitting someone in the face. Like, the progressive challenge of form and medium, which ultimately belies the best Daredevil stories under the most talented artists, just isn't here yet. So as much as I'm like, and Tori has had to draw me writing 9-panel grid so many fucking times, it's unattractive.
The first issue we worked on together had a 17-panel page. I'll never forgive you for that.
I wouldn't either. That was terrible.
17 panels of a fight. And he's like, no, yeah, just this one has a punch and this one. And I'm just like, I've never drawn a fight in my life. I've never had so many panels in my life. And you want me to keep it within the bleed zone? Yeah.
I was like, do a straight up Daredevil in 1964. I was like, don't you come to 2000 and whatever, 2014?
Yeah, 2014. Jesus Christ.
So I really think the amount of 9-panel grid here and deviations on 9-panel grid, especially when the only thing really making these characters different is the color blocking. Daredevil is in his yellow and red, and I love it.
Yellow for the last time.
Oh my God, for the last time.
Say goodbye to this beautiful yellow shirt. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, yellow shirt. Bye-bye. I don't know what to do, because like, Daredevil Yellow is the most famous miniseries representing this time in his life.
We can come back to that.
It's 6 issues though.
I know.
It's one more than he's actually in the yellow costume.
I know.
This costume has so much impact for something that only appears 7 times. It's crazy because 2 of them aren't even his issue. So I don't know, man. I'm really gonna be sad to say goodbye to Yellow. I think it grows on me more and more every time I see it. I don't know if you remember going like KB Toys as a kid, but like rushing those aisles because I grew up a Marvel Comics fan and there would be those giant figures and then the small figures. And I'm really lucky. Series contributed to X's for Podcast and Incredible Boyfriend Jonah got me all of the Daredevil and Elektra figures they released this year for my birthday. Oh my God. So there's like 5 up on my wall and it's amazing. And I would rush those aisles because I knew, according to Wizard Magazine, that they had just made a yellow and red 12-inch figure variant with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13 points of articulation. I can still see the figure in my goddamn head anytime I want. This figure meant more to me than anything in this world because I got to be like, no, I'm a real Daredevil fan. I even know this costume and the internet doesn't exist.
I hope you got it.
I did. I had a 12 yellow. I had a 8-inch red. And then he's in that horrible tech costume in the 90s. And I haven't gotten 5-inch
yet. I'm not looking forward to it.
No, he's so buff in it that he like literally fills this double page spread I can think of in particular. He's bigger than like the Hulk.
I cannot wait. I cannot wait until we get to the 90s and we have to talk about putting this hyper masculine facade on top of Matt Murdock, the softest boy in the land. And we get to have like gender theory conversations about a dude who fucks more than almost anybody in the goddamn universe.
Every woman just wants to touch his billy club. It is wild.
Ooh, I mean, count me in. Speaking of touching things you shouldn't, let's talk about these thieves pretending to be camera crews.
Fine.
Well, the camera crew is real.
Yes.
The actors are secretly thieves.
I'm super attracted to the Ox. I'm sorry.
I'm not surprised by this information. It tracks with everything I know about you.
It does. Ox is kind of like your standard bear, and Eel is kind of like your standard twink, and Mr. Fear is that uncomfortable dom that tries to dom everybody. And interestingly, his last name, Drago, there are 3 classic Marvel Universe villains with the last name Drago, all unrelated.
Fun fact, I looked it up. Zoltan Drago, I wrote, what a name, means life precious in Slavic regions.
Wow.
You're welcome.
Thank you, because I'm like sitting over here being like, and then there's a Drago that's one of the vultures, and you're like, how about some real stuff?
I just, every so often I'm like, the fuck does this mean? Because like it probably means like giant purple scary guy, and they're just like life precious, and I'm like, okay, talk to me about how like a guy who's super into mannequins is like life precious. Tell me more. Give it to me.
Is that he wants to preserve life and the way it looks?
Maybe, and maybe life is so precious that like we can only hold on to it by putting it under glass, and like it's just a lot. It's just a lot to think about that I guarantee they didn't think about in the 1960s. No, they were like, that's got a Z, and oh, that kind of sounds like a cool name. That's sort of like from that Rocky movie. Okie dokie.
It's kind of like
Zolt. That doesn't exist yet.
Well, it's like Zolt and like dragon. So it's like lightning dragon. And that's probably what. So I literally thought the word sagacious meant saga-like my entire life because Stan Lee used the word sagacious to mean saga-like since like the 1960s. So he just liked the way some stuff sound and really fucked the rest of us over.
That's fair. That is fair. I was also really fascinated by this whole crime setup because like the amount of permits and shit that you need to film, particularly in New York City and even in the kind of swinging 60s, like you need so many permits, so many like, don't send the street cleaners here. Please make sure the cops are sort of aware that this is happening. Please block off this street. Please make sure sanitation doesn't come through. Like, but make sure sanitation comes through once we're done because we have a bunch of dumpsters. Like, there's so many permits and like things you have to figure out that like it makes more sense if they just hired a film crew, because if the film crew was part of it, there's just so much paper trail that you could just really nail them on.
And this guy doesn't seem like he's trying to hide that hard. So,
No.
First of all, what a great perspective. I really loved that, because the sort of like, sometimes when they clearly get stuff wrong, I kind of lose my shit in fiction, only when it misrepresents an industry in a way that is unfair to that industry. Like, you know, whether or not I thought the songs on Smash were a lot of fun.
I knew this was where it's going.
It's gonna always go there.
It's gonna always go there.
I can't.
Yeah. When Smash makes opening night on Broadway look worse than it did on Glee, like, you got a problem.
Big problem.
Big problem.
And I feel like knowing that there is kind of a way in which him hiring a crew kind of makes sense.
Yeah, because at least it's just paperwork. At least it's just he probably stiffed them on like the bill. But like the crew would have done all of the permits and the whatevers and the blah, blah, blahs. And then all of a sudden there's just cops everywhere. Oh my gosh. But I love a con artist story. I love, you know, a good safe break. I'm also very fascinated when they pull in a villain that has a lot of the same acrobatic skills as Daredevil.
And they have him reference that he fought Human Torch.
Yes.
Which was so clever. Like, that's the kind of like tie-in stuff that I expect to see in my 60s comics.
Right. So these are, while Mr. Fear wasn't seen previously, but these two were.
Correct on every count.
Gotcha. Also, can you help me out? What is this MMMS that keeps popping up in like background posters and things with like, it might be a little further ahead, but
I'm just going to assume it's like the Mighty Marvel Masterworks Society or something.
Okay. It feels like, I don't know. Oh, when I see it, I'll let you know. But
and it might even be legit, because like we do have a reference to Woolworths. And so it could be a legit thing I'm just unaware of for sure.
Oh yeah. The MMMS wants you top left of page 3. Or of comic page 3. It's like the thing pointing.
Oh my God, you are the best. No better time to do it than now, I guess. Those of you who are exorbitant enough to spend the money on the omnibus editions have a slight unfair advantage to those of us who are a little bit more reasonable and don't buy omnibuy of everything. Okay, I bought the omnibus of this, but I don't buy the omnibus of everything. In our letters page, they are clearly beginning to really push that Marvel is a brand here. And in the special announcement section, which is the last thing after all the letters, the third announcement is, ever wonder how DD keeps his uniform so nice and neat while he's swinging into action? It's because he holds it together with his Merry Marvel Marching Society membership pin. If you haven't sent in for yours yet, hurry up and fill out the coupon in this ish. You wouldn't want your fighting costume to become undone during a battle, would you? I have to assume that at one point you had to write what page it was on. Like, did you find the little hinty guy?
Ooh. It's right up there with Sea Monkeys, let me tell you.
Oh, or like occasionally in the 70s. I mean, they're really good about single page ads, but in the 70s, they would do like double splashes with the bottom half ads and the top half art. It was so ugly and weird.
I don't like that, especially because like in the 70s, I guarantee it was Lockheed Martin. Gross. Not the Fun Dragon one. Great. Well, now that we all have those, I also I had a note here that Daredevil fights like Theseus, but like we don't need to go into that.
But it's important to have it on the record.
Right. Like he fights smart. He goes low, so you go hide, and then he throws you. Like he's a smart fighter.
You might even think he was trained by a wrestler or a boxer.
A boxer? Oh, wow. I'm super fascinated by once Mr. Fear like shows up, we get a lot more purple in all of the panels. It's really neat. Really great thing, especially because I mean, in my new digital version, I don't know how it looked back in the day, but it feels like a very different purple from the Purple Man.
Yeah, 1,000%.
It feels much more electric.
I want to know how you feel about that. So, like, it's not a big secret, but like my all-time favorite Daredevil side character that isn't Elektra, you know, because she's not a side character, she's her own thing, is Gladiator. And, you know, Melvin he just breaks my heart every time he appears. And his costume shop is a better version of the Wax Museum.
Oh, yeah.
And Purple Man is a better version of Mr. Fear.
Yeah.
So with this issue, bro?
I would love to have someone who was in the room with writer Stan Lee, illustrator Wally Wood, letterer Sam Rosen, and help me figure out what makes them choose villains for Daredevil. Because it's not just super strong. It's not just psychological. It's not just smart. And sometimes it's not just stilts. So like what, you know, when you've talked a lot about how for Spider-Man, there's a lot of animal ones. For other characters, they also have like their own sort of like niche grouping of villains that they work with. And so to have Daredevil sort of be a catch-all, and then to have a catch-all of new ones, because it's one thing when you're a catch-all of other people's things. Like, we get it. Daredevil was a B-side character, like he's going to get people's leftovers. But to then create someone who's halfway sort of the same as another one, what was the idea that he would only work with things that have to do with fear? Is that like what they might have been looking to do, and then it just never worked out?
I got to assume, you know, the X-Men fight Juggernaut and Blob pretty close together. And then Eunice, who is also untouchable. Eunice is a much less popular mutant. I don't, you know, expect a lot of people to recognize him by name, but his name is Eunice the Untouchable. And he has a super powerful, impenetrable force field that at one point like turned against him and he almost died in it. And he has a really cool daughter named Eunice Scion, and she's got an incredible force field as well. And they all kind of had a "you can't touch me" kind of vibe early on. Mm-hmm. So I do have to wonder if they were just like, the X-Men are weird, don't touch them, you can't touch their villains. Daredevil's scared or whatever, spooky villains.
Oh, maybe that's why they got rid of the yellow, too close to a color of fear.
I think that's a really important perspective because, you know, I love that you mentioned the purples. Mm-hmm. And something just to talk a little bit about mental illness for a minute.
On the other side of the color wheel.
Right? I experienced a condition called panic disorder for about 2 years where I was just like, my brain just was having so much trouble finding things to not be scared of. And it made life really complicated. And I'll be honest, when you're scared, the world does have a very different color. And tastes are different and sounds are different and everything hits your brain different. And this overwhelming sense of purple, which immediately disappears. They are so careful. When you take a look at the pages back mm-hmm. in Murdock and Nelson, with the exception of Foggy, who's in a dark red, almost as if he's marked, mm-hmm. everything stays on these lighter spectrum colors because the Purple Man's not here. He's not influencing. Oh my God, I said Purple Man. Because Mr. Fear is not here. He's not influencing everything. So I really agree with that purple perspective.
Yeah. I love when Daredevil is confused and scared. I think it's a really fascinating difference because even this early on, for all that Daredevil and Matt aren't quite who they end up being, you do understand that Daredevil is a very, very competent superhero. Oh, yeah. He's very good at what he does, and he does it with, vim, vigor, and all the virility you need. So I always enjoy when he's like, wait, what? Oh my goodness. So
because that's kind of how he behaves as Matt. Mm-hmm. Like, it's so interesting because, and I mean, you're someone who's worked in theater, so you'll get this, but when I am, up on a panel, or when I was working in Disney, or when I'm up on stage performing, I'm someone else.
Yeah, you're putting on the extra version. I'm doing it right now.
Same. And if I were scared, I would be like, no, I'm Nico without the baseball caps and without the bravado. I'm scared right now.
Right. Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that you bring that up, because then that means that Matt has decided that to show that he is I guess the persona that he wants to be perceived as is as a very good lawyer who's just sort of flighty also, and also a little afeared of things. I don't want to skip right to Matt and Karen and Foggy, because we're going to have to do a catch up on that parallelogram, because I don't want to skip over the fantastic one-page story of a cat turning you evil. And
I love it.
It's such a cute little kitty.
It is one of those moments where I'm just like, who thought that this was a believable origin story?
Someone who owns a cat.
Okay.
Someone who owns a cat.
I've never had a cat.
Like watch the cat like knock something over and be like, you're very lucky that wasn't, acid.
I watch enough animal fail videos to see cats rip TVs right off the wall.
Right? They'll do shit. They do shit. It's fine. But and then he's like, oh no, the cat. The cat's just like, did I get a treat? Is it me? But it's just, this is one of those, again, this is a villain who is given all of this weird shit of fear gas and just decides he could have gone one way and sold it to the military for billions of dollars. And instead it's just no, you know what I need? A skull mask, some robes, and a dream of something.
A dream of a scarier world.
Are you kidding? Come on, fellas, take the easy way out, get the money and run.
That is one of the things that Daredevil villains have a habit of doing more than other villains. I feel like when the X-Men are defeated, bad guy mutant goes back to his lair and counts his money. I don't know.
Yeah.
When the Avengers defeat Loki goes back to Asgard and counts the bodies. I don't know.
Yeah.
But when Daredevil villains defeat him, they're like, I'm going to walk through Times Square talking about it.
Yeah. They're like, I got rid of that guy. And I'm like, there's a swinging kid out in Queens that you're going to have to deal with real fucking soon. And then all the people from upstate are going to come down. And there's a wizard down on Bleecker Street.
There's a wizard!
I was like, I don't know where the 4 Tower is, but I'm pretty sure it's Times Square. You're going to have to fuck with that too. This is just and Harlem, God forbid we go up to Harlem. You've got problems
everywhere.
On all levels, street level to sky level. You're covered in the New York port.
You are top to bottom 5 boroughs of pain.
Take that shit to Philly if you want to try.
Good luck.
Because I've met Philly people. I don't need Philly super people. Because if they had super people, maybe the Phillies would win every so often.
Ba-da-da-da-da-da.
Boom. I said it. I'll say it again. I'll say it every day. Meanwhile, do you have anything else for Mr. Fear?
Oh, just that his gun is so annoying. It's just a gun. It's not that I'm very anti-gun in terms of we don't need that in our comic books. Whatever my personal beliefs are about firearms, it doesn't matter. Number one, I'm very about public safety. So I don't really think that we need to be further indoctrinating guns as weapons on a scale where we're trying to show kids, go stand up to that thing, go fight that gunman. I don't think we need that. But this is a little bit more just that's not how waves work.
We're going to get into how air works later.
Because it doesn't.
Because that's not how it works. Anyway, we are back in the office, and I'll start with the parallelogram update.
Oh, please do.
I truly believe that this is beyond a triangle at this point. Daredevil's officially a 4th point on this thing where you try to figure out the fastest way from one point to the next. So
it's like the fucking map of Mordor.
It really is. So Matt, I keep bobby pins around because I fiddle. So Matt loves Karen, but he thinks she loves Daredevil and maybe Foggy. maybe she returns Foggy's feelings. Karen loves Matt, but is playing with Foggy as a backup, but also is hot for Daredevil. Foggy loves Karen and thinks Matt hangs the moon, but is still kind of mixed on Daredevil. And that's what you missed on Daredevil. Daredevil, you know what? I think Daredevil's into Karen, and I think Daredevil doesn't think about Foggy at all.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. We spend so many runs talking about how Daredevil's two different people. Why can't he have feelings for somebody in one form and not in the other? Yeah. Foggy took care of him. Foggy protected him and cherishes him. Like, I don't mean cherishes in a funny way, but like, you can cherish your brother like that. And I mean, I think it's a little gayer than that, but you can cherish your brother like that. And yet DD is this swashbuckling alter ego persona where he's just letting it, like, I mean, stuffy lawyer, spandex. This isn't hard to see where he feels free in the second costume.
Yeah. Oh, and also he goes home and sleeps with Matt too. So like, there's that. Gosh. Well,
they just jerk each other off all the time.
Living together in sin.
Living together in sin. And that's why they write in all the Catholicism.
Oh, somebody's gotta. So anyway, I was very fascinated that we have Matt has his little like calling service device. They go and they visit the Daredevil mannequin, but he also has, sorry, I got ahead of myself. He has a television in his office, which is very strange to me because it's not a television in the main area. It's a television in his office. And I'm just like, Matt chooses such specific things to seem blind.
Yes.
Like, he's like, I'm blind, so I have a television. I was like, bro, I know you have a radio.
Right?
I know you do. So why don't you just have the radio? But no, we need a television.
He's such a fucking bad alter ego.
He's terrible at alter egoing. I just wanna say, goddamn.
I just want to put on my I'm Not Daredevil shirt.
That's a great shirt. They really should have brought in a lot sooner. So Karen's like, let's go visit the mannequins. They go to the mannequins. They find out his name is Zoltan Draco. I think that guy read Pygmalion too often, because why else would you keep mannequins around to become people?
Oh, it's because that gives them an easy character reference sheet they can copy. They're not mannequins of no one. They're mannequins of Thor, of Ant-Man, of Mr. Fantastic. This was how they could get in there quick, draw the people you know how to draw.
This is true.
It only occurred to me because of our conversation earlier.
Oh my God. Okay. Oh, wow. I really went back and forth on my notes a lot. Oh my goodness. I'm trying to keep this moving, but like, goddamn.
Let me ask you a question.
You're gonna have to hit me, please, because I'm getting lost in my own manic notes.
Speaking of people who got hit, Foggy's the damsel here.
Foggy is the damsel here. So this is really interesting. I remember one of the early comments that, Cancel Joss Whedon once said was that they figured out really early that in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer show, putting Willow in trouble was a great idea because like everyone was like, oh no, like the fans really reacted. But I feel like they would also sometimes put Xander in danger, and the general idea was, oh no, not him too. And I feel like that's what we get with Foggy, where it's like, oh no, not him too.
He's looking hot this issue, hotter than he looks any other issue, even drawn by Wally Wood.
Oh yeah. Like he looks good. He is giving me what's his face from My Dream of Jeannie?
Oh yeah, Larry Hagman.
Yes, giving me.
He was
Larry
JR.
Hagman. I know.
Yeah, I get that. I very get that. And the other thing that I think is working for Foggy, and I don't mean this mean, but seeing him with what kind of looks like a John McEnroe tennis band, kind of foreshortens the very long head they gave him. This is an example of where now I really want him to wear sweatbands all the time at the office.
My God, how profesh. How profesh. But I also love that, like, they really damseled Foggy up a lot. Like, he gets the what is it, the La Pieta moment almost. Like, he gets the full, like, damsel-y, hit the wall. There's a crack, a hole in the wall, and he's lying in a little bit of rubble, and his ties askew.
Save me, Daredevil.
After ripping the face off of something. God. Yeah, no, he gets carried. Oh, yeah, he does get carried out in the full La Pieta. Wow.
They really leaned into Matt cares about Foggy. Like,
yes.
I think that this is necessary because the truth is I don't care about Foggy yet. I think he's a creeper. I think he's uncomfortable. I think he's backup Matt.
What do you think that people of the time reacted that way? Because we think of him as a creeper because we elevate Karen's status more now. At the time, would he have been just more than just like, I don't want to say Jimmy Olsen because he's his like actual best friend and is seen to be on the same footing. He's not a Jimmy Olsen, but like that he gets to be the, like, what would he be to people? Is he disposable?
I think
Is he the Aunt May?
I think it's kind of like Gene Rayburn syndrome, which totally off topic, but one of the things that I love about American media culture is the American game show. And in all of its many splendored forms, I think that the game show is like an actual art. Jane Lynch hosting The Weakest Link is like pinnacle excellence. Like, she makes me regret that she's such an amazing actress because I wish she could just host game shows. Like, I've been to multiple tapings of Match Game. Like, game shows are my thing. And I really have trouble going back before, like, I don't know, Win, Lose, or Draw, when the CBS years when the cast of Designing Women was on. Because anything before that, the guests get kissed by the men.
All the time.
Like, these men just put their hands on these women.
Dawson
is the worst. I wasn't even going to fucking bring up Richard Dawson because they're drunk men.
Dawson.
Really put a lot of young women in danger, really behaved like an animal on set, and like, that is who I think Foggy is. Oh, he's just one of the boys. And now we see it as, that's not one of the boys. That's gross. Stop touching women that you did not have permission to touch.
Right.
And Foggy is just in that Richard Dawson. This is the family feud, and he's here to make up for the fact that he's not a successful actor anymore.
I agree. And so, like, I'm wondering, like, I know that there's a little bit of that in the this in the television series, but the idea that Foggy is who Matt should be trying to become, as opposed to this nerdy little half-broken, disabled boy who somehow still gets plenty of girls, but to Foggy.
Do you think that Foggy thinks of it as like, oh, but they're like pity girls? Do you think he maybe even has some I'm the bull here mentality?
I think that Foggy possibly thinks that Matt has an easy way of getting girls, and he has to prove himself to girls. That it's a little bit like, oh, he gets all the girls because he's got the Ferrari. He gets all the girls because his dad's a Rolling Stone.
Yeah.
And Foggy's like, I got a little money, I got a good job, but like, I don't got what Matt's got, so I gotta hustle for mine, and that makes me getting a girl more worthy than Matt just being able to get any girl who says, oh, I bet I can fix him.
I also wonder how much Foggy is a response to Matt as a personality. When I take a look at the very loud suits Foggy wears compares to the very black, muted, navy blue, dark suit that they constantly put Matt in, Foggy is desperate for attention in a way that Matt does not need. And it really makes him dressing so garishly seem kind of needy.
No, I agree. But there is also a part of me that's like, a black suit looks good with any tie. So
Oh, I agree.
Fuck it up. The blind man can't fuck it up, kind
of. But then why wouldn't Foggy wear that? Why wouldn't Foggy also be stylish?
That is true. On the Foggy side of things, why is Foggy in all of these bright, garish colors when that's not really who he is? Because he's not really a swinging 60s guy. He's not a hyper hip 60s guy. He is very much like, he's trying to be, that Don Draper. And Don Draper doesn't show up in a neon purple suit.
No, and not this green stuff that looks exactly like the same color as the eel, who, all right, we've gone so far without saying it. We've been so good. We can say it. That is literally a gimp suit. That is quite literally a full body gimp suit. I have been to enough Folsom parties to recognize a green full body gimp suit.
And he's covered in lubricant.
Yeah, this is turning straight up into Folsom.
In lubricant. I just.
What were they thinking?
I don't get it. I think maybe they didn't get it. Because, like, for all that you're like, Wonder Woman came from the idea of like a kinky night between etc. and the importance of a polytriad and all of this stuff, blah, 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 blah. I get the feeling Stan Lee didn't attend those kinds of parties. And I feel like neither did Wally Wood. So.
Which, thank you so much for bringing up Wally Wood. Anybody who, as we wind down this episode, might not be aware, I just want to give a quick trigger warning. Wally Wood had a very sad life, and it was marred by a lot of personal tragedy. And while Wally Wood is one of the most fondly remembered artists to ever grace Daredevil, he actually only drew on issues like 5 to 8 and contributed to 9 and 10. And he ultimately so everyone is warned, sensitive topic here. He did ultimately take his own life in 1981. And that was a huge wake-up call for the comic industry to start taking care of these people. And it just bothers me that the only people that get taken care of still are the men. And all of these women who worked under them, who got no credits, who will never be able to claim a character, get no recognition on top of these men who get no recognition. It's a really sticky world, and it's just so sad that we lost Wally Wood to such an unkind situation that could not have been made any easier by the toxicity of his industry.
Yeah. I was not aware of Wally Wood's passing and tragic story. And it is heartbreaking to know that we lost some of the original creators of this comic
so early in the grand scheme of things. Mm-hmm. But it's really lovely because you can look at things like the letters pages where they're just so excited that Wally's going to be on, and ultimately he doesn't serve the length run that they hope he does. But it's nice to see Stan show love. And it's unforgettable because this is the guy that, like, that last panel where Daredevil's horns are projected against the wall, like, this guy really served us up Daredevil that Stephen S. DeKnight is grateful for to this day.
Yeah. It's a shame. It's a real shame. Similar to the real shame that is how Mr. Fear's fear gas works, which is not how air works.
Nope.
At all.
Nope.
Like, I was willing to say, like, okay, it was blown straight into his face in the first couple pages, so like that makes sense. It's a concentrated aerolized spray, but the idea that you can just throw it into the HVAC and like it's only going to affect Daredevil and when no one else is wearing gas masks, like it's definitely not science.
No, and like you could even convince me that a later comic would have access to a piece of Daredevil's DNA, a strand of hair that was found, and they could synthesize something that he would be afraid of. But I don't think you can convince me that. That's why I was like, it's just energy rays. That's really what it is. It's a targeted energy ray.
Yeah.
And they just tried to write Purple Man again.
They tried to write Purple Man again, but like in this weird like MK Ultra kind of like stylization. And I was just like, you should have really just taken this to Russia and made $1 billion trillion. So I don't know, especially and like so this is why when Foggy goes in, I'm just like, why are you going in on this? Why don't you just call in the tip that you figured out who this was? Like, why do you feel the need
Why did
to
how
go
did that help?
yourself?
You've already fucked up in the past. You've already been injured in these sorts of fights in previous issues.
Yeah. And also he's not even doing it because like Karen's gonna be with him. Like this is just like his own personal nonsense of like trying to prove himself up against Daredevil when you're already calling him an idiot for being in these situations to begin with. So like she doth protest too much. And now he's behaving stupidly. And I don't know, man.
We're a long way from Guts Nelson.
We are. But I did like how Karen got a few more like emotional beats this time around. We got to see her like caring for people. She gets to have a really nice moment with Matt where she calls his ass out for leaving, because it's true. Like from the outside perspective, Matt's a shitty fucking friend.
Truly.
Seriously. And that's like, I keep mentioning this because I'm trying to catch up so that by the time we hit like other people, I'm not, I can keep my Netflix references up to date. But there's constantly moments where they're like, you were just wandering the street with your phone off?
Yeah.
Okay, like, no.
Why would you do that?
You're a flaky fuck. I've had one friend get blackout drunk on the group and disappear. And the only reason this happened was because I was not with the group at this point. But he got blackout drunk. He fucking disappeared. And like, we were deeply concerned about him on the streets of New York City until he was able to let us know he was okay. Because that's some shit. And this is before New York got cleaned up.
Oh my God. We actually read an Electra story that was just published for X's for Podcast, and it has a flashback to like 1982, and all of the stuff says like girly peep show 25 cents. And I was like, pre-Giuliani New York.
The good old days.
Show me them titties, girl.
And if you believe people will be there in like 2 weeks. These, will Eric Adams, push us into the future? Who knows? So yeah, I'm a little upset that Karen like sees broken Foggy and is like crying and is like, oh my God, maybe I have feelings for him. And I'm just like,
no, you don't.
This is where it's like, does Karen have a complex, or is this just how we think women react to things? So like, that's always a question mark for me. And I need to scroll back and I need to look at it, because I think that while we have no, there are no female nurses here. Karen is still the only lady that we see. The only one.
Did I not know that women didn't used to be nurses? Like, was nurse not even something women were allowed to do?
No, women were always nurses because it wasn't the doctors.
Okay, I didn't know if they weren't even allowed to be nurses. I didn't know if it was like, you can be a midwife. Like,
no. Nurses, they were allowed to be nurses because that's the caring part. That's the sweet part. That's the nice part.
So this is just a weird art choice.
Yeah, that like they're like the fact that it's because she walks in while the doctor is there, and then these are orderlies, and orderlies are men because they're the ones who are going to like put you down if you're upset, which they now train women to do as well. But it used to be that orderlies were the big burly guys who like, you were like, I need 10 towels, and that man to get 10 milligrams of whatever to put it down. Yeah, stat. And they couldn't be trusted with much because they were mostly just hired muscle in scrubs.
Like Ox.
Like Ox. Oh my God, he's perfect for it. Also, I'm very fascinated that like they were like, it's that they covered Eel in sand, correct? Or dust or something.
Yeah, they made him not lubricanty.
Okay, because like for a moment there, I was like, is it because he's not in the costume he doesn't have lubricant, or Is like, is
Mm.
the costume the lubricant? Because ew. But that makes it easy to get in and out of, but also ew.
This guy sounds like he's just slathered in mayonnaise all the time, like
I
some sort of human pickle.
thank you for that beautiful faux fun joke you have. Um so yeah, so I think this oh my god, we turned the lights out for the fight because we just want to have a little lettering.
Yep. Which S. Rosen killing it on letters. Next
Oh
issue,
my
S.
god.
Rosen is going to be gone. We're going to have Artie Simek, and we're going to lose our precious S. Rosen. But S. Rosen doing the best he can with a zillion letters every page.
A zillion letters every page. A zillion. We were talking about this. I mentioned this to Clay McCoy Chapman, but just that how much wording is on every page is outrageous. Absolutely outrageous.
It's crazy. If they were getting paid by the word, this would be the most expensive book in the world.
I swear to God. I swear to God. This is also a very extended fight sequence for just a couple of henchmen.
And for a couple of henchmen that ultimately, like, yeah, they're Daredevil 1 through 50 henchmen, but these aren't like, this doesn't make sense with who Daredevil comes to have trouble with. And like next issue, he fucking fights Namor. Don't get me wrong. He gets his ass handed to him. But he fights Namor.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
Namor can fight the Hulk.
This is just a very I don't want to say that there's not a lot to this issue, but there's not a lot to this issue. Outside of the fact that they were like, okay, so we put Karen in trouble. Let's try putting Foggy in trouble. And I want to do something with the word fear. And let's grab a strong guy and a slippery guy. We good? Good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a wrestling team up. It's, you know, and I think one of the things that I'm really fascinated by is even though this had the least issue to it, it's the longest episode.
Because like there are things to think about inside of it.
Yeah.
To talk about. And I think what we found is that like it's not so much that we're just like, time to complain for 45 minutes, but like that there's a lot of ways in which how these things were set up so early on and being the original canon that we have to kind of look at, particularly when it's very obvious that these issues are the ones that are getting pulled for when thinking about future issues, future media representations and things like this. Like we have to be able to go back to this and be like, what is it about these that struck a chord or made people think like this is how this person should be portrayed? Like it's just it is important to do these.
I agree completely.
So is that why you didn't fight me that much when I said I wanted to start in the 60s?
You know, it's because I've really come to appreciate the complex web. It's not always my Daredevil, but that doesn't make it not Daredevil. I haven't always been my favorite version of myself either, but that's part of me and part of who I am. And if this is part of the legacy of a character that provides me so much strength, then it's got to be worth discussing, even if it's to say, these things were not done quite to the standard we would expect, and we hope for better in the future.
Yeah. And I think it's also like there's also the moment where we're just like, was this groundbreaking for the 60s? Was this middle of the pack for the 60s? And I think right now we're seeing mostly middle of the pack. I think groundbreaking will come soonish, maybe.
I mean, just having a blind superhero alone is in some way groundbreaking. So, like, I feel you. They're going to get more thoughtful.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of that is going to come as we get stronger art and stronger. Not that it's not already strong, but just like more specific art and a more specific like this is what Daredevil looks like. Daredevil's going to slip into more of a noir tone. Daredevil's going to feel much more it's going to bring in more of the law. It's going to bring in more of the duality of man. And we're going to get women who talk to each other at some point. It's going to be great.
And way too many blind jokes.
Very many blind jokes.
But until we return for those amazing Very Many Blind jokes, I've loved this discussion, and I loved talking about this issue even when I didn't love it. I'm so excited for the red suit and for a different kind of eternally wet man in Namor next issue.
Moist.
Well, so moist.
So moist.
But until everybody towels off their moisture, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. Twitter is at Tori_Sheehan, and Instagram is at SMTori. That's Tori with an I. Where can we find you, Nico?
As always, you guys can find me all over X's for Podcast, bringing you modern Marvel comics and their discussions 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And don't forget to look out for me in the upcoming Young Men in Love anthology, dropping in June, featuring incredible creators like Sina Grace, Joe Glass, Anthony Oliveira, Terry Bloss. I can't stop naming amazing talents in that book. I'm so lucky.
Covered by Kevin Wada.
Covered by Kevin Wada. Oh, and you can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Nico Action. It's NicoAction. And until next time, you know what to do. Stay fearless.
Yay!